Beneath the crushing weight of the bitter cold, as snow descended upon the city's desolate stone streets, the man clutched the child to his chest with the fierce protectiveness of a father. His footsteps were heavy yet resolute. He marched forward, leaving the city's dark alleys behind him. In that decisive moment, the child glanced back, her wide eyes filled with fear and apprehension. Her gaze pierced through the gloom and the frost, scanning the path behind them, terrified to ensure that no one was following, as if she were bidding farewell to a life of misery to embrace an unknown destiny with the man. It is an image that embodies the contrast between the man's determination to forge ahead towards salvation and the child's anxiety over what they had left behind. An epic of humanity and justice. Emerging from the darkness, 1815. The story begins with Jean Valjean, a former convict who spent 19 years at hard labor, 5 years for stealing a loaf of bread to feed his sister's starving children, and 14 years for escape attempts. Valjean is released carrying the yellow passport, which classifies him as a danger to society, marking him as an outcast unable to find shelter or food. He enters a church where Bishop Myriel receives him with warmth and generosity. However, Valjean, whose heart had been hardened by time, steals the bishop's silverware and flees into the night. The police capture him and return him to the bishop. Here, the great turning point occurs. The bishop tells the police that he was the one who gifted Valjean the silver, and he adds 2 precious candlesticks to the haul, whispering to Valjean, "I am buying your soul from evil and giving it to good." Valjean breaks down and decides to change his life forever. Fantine and Mayor Madeleine, 1823. Years later, a wealthy and respected man named Monsieur Madeleine appears. He has become the mayor of the city of Montreuil-sur-Mer and the owner of a thriving factory. This man is Jean Valjean with a new identity. Working in his factory is a young woman named Fantine. Fantine is a single mother to a child named Cosette, whom she was forced to leave with a greedy family named the Thénardiers to care for in exchange for money. Fantine's illegitimate child is discovered, and she is fired from the factory without the mayor's knowledge. Fantine's circumstances deteriorate. She sells her hair and teeth and resorts to prostitution to send money to the Thénardier family, who constantly blackmail her. Mayor Madeleine intervenes to save Fantine from prison following a dispute, and while she lies on her deathbed, he promises to care for her daughter Cosette. Meanwhile, Inspector Javert arrives, a police officer who believes in applying the law to the letter without mercy. Javert suspects that the mayor is the escaped convict Jean Valjean. A twist occurs when an innocent vagrant is arrested and mistaken for Jean Valjean. The mayor wrestles with his conscience in the tempest under a skull scene and decides to surrender himself to the court to save the innocent man. Valjean escapes once again to fulfill his promise to Fantine, who dies before seeing her daughter. Cosette, 1823 to 1824. Valjean goes to the Thénardiers' inn, where the child Cosette is treated as a servant and lives in abject misery. Valjean buys her freedom for a large sum, and they flee to Paris. Inspector Javert pursues them, but Valjean succeeds in hiding inside a convent, where he works as a gardener with the help of an old man whose life he had previously saved. Cosette and Valjean live in the convent for years in peace and security. Marius and Love, 1832. Years pass, and Valjean and Cosette, now a beautiful young woman, leave the convent to live in Paris under assumed identities. In the public gardens, Cosette exchanges glances with a revolutionary youth named Marius Pontmercy. A strong affection develops between them from afar. Marius is a student belonging to the Friends of the ABC, a group of young Republicans plotting a revolution against the monarchy. Meanwhile, the destitute Thénardier family appears in Paris and plans to rob Valjean, who is known as a benefactor. Marius, who lives next door to them, intervenes and informs the police. Javert appears again and arrests the gang, but Valjean makes a clever escape before Javert can recognize him. The Barricades and the Revolution, June 1832. The June Rebellion breaks out in Paris. Students build barricades in the streets. Marius decides to join the fight, seeking death, after believing he has lost Cosette, whom Valjean had decided to take to England for fear of being exposed. Valjean discovers a letter between Marius and Cosette and decides to go to the barricades to protect Marius for Cosette's sake. At the barricades, Éponine, Thénardier's daughter, who is in love with Marius, sacrifices herself to save him from a fatal bullet. Javert is captured as a police spy and sentenced to death by the revolutionaries. Valjean volunteers to execute Javert himself. However, he leads him to a side alley, fires his gun into the air, and sets him free. He gives Javert his name and address, setting a magnificent example of forgiveness. The Barricades. All of Marius's comrades are killed at the barricades. Valjean carries the wounded and unconscious Marius on his shoulders, escaping through the sewers of Paris in a harrowing journey amidst darkness and filth. The end and redemption. At the sewer outlet, Valjean encounters Inspector Javert. To his surprise, Javert allows Valjean to transport Marius to his grandfather's home and subsequently allows Valjean to return to his own home. Javert finds himself in a shattering internal conflict. Valjean, the criminal, has proven to be more humane and virtuous than he is, and Javert's rigid code of law holds no meaning in the face of Valjean's mercy. Unable to reconcile his duty with his conscience, Javert casts himself into the river Seine, committing suicide. Marius recovers and marries Cosette. Valjean confesses his true identity, that of an ex-convict, to Marius. Marius, unaware that it was Valjean who saved him in the sewers, decides to gradually distance Cosette from him, fearing his past. Valjean lives in solitude and heartbreak, separated from Cosette, and his health rapidly declines. Eventually, Thénardier attempts to blackmail Marius with information about Valjean, painting him as a thief and a murderer. His proof is a piece of cloth from the victim's coat, which Valjean had carried through the sewers. Marius instantly recognizes the fabric as part of his own coat, realizing that the alleged murderer is in fact his savior. Marius and Cosette rush to Valjean's home, finding him taking his final breaths. Marius begs for forgiveness, and Cosette embraces him. Jean Valjean dies in peace, illuminated by the candlesticks given to him by the bishop, knowing he has kept his promise and loved truly. It is nothing to die, it is dreadful not to live.